Good morning, guys. Happy Monday. I hope you're well. Welcome to Monday Moments with Fran. I'm delighted to have a guest with me here today. So this is Selena Morgan Gale. Do you want to share a little bit about what you do?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Fran. Thank you for having me on this morning. Really appreciate it. So I am a mediator. So my company is SMG Mediation. It's an acronym for my name. And it also stands for Settlement Through Mediation with Our Guidance. So what we actually do is help people, individuals, businesses with legal disputes in civil, commercial, workplace, employment, neighbouring community, and a little bit of family as well. So yeah, that's what I do.
Fantastic. And what really drew you to mediation? What was one of those things that was like, do you know what, this is what I want to do?
Well, it was actually a funny story because I actually studied to be a barrister. So I was doing the BPTC, which is basically the training course to study to be a barrister. And in 2012, I got made redundant. So at that time, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? But it was kind of like a bittersweet because the job I was in, my boss knew that I was studying to be a lawyer. And he really knew that I was going to leave at one point. So my dream was kind of like, well, I've got to leave now because I want to go into the legal field. But how do I tell him? Because I really did enjoy my job. But I knew it was only short term. It was kind of like a little pit stop. So when he made me redundant, I was kind of like, you've actually helped me. You've done the job for me because I know that it was coming and you know it was coming. But at the same time, you're still kind of hit with the whole, what do I do now? So I got made redundant. And then at that time, a year before that, I gave birth to my beautiful son. And the relationship that I was in broke down the year after that. So it was kind of just like, boom, 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 a lot of things going on. So in that time, it just really made me think like, what do I really want to do? And I started to see that the legal route to being a barrister wasn't for me. It was just going to be really long hours, which I already knew to begin with. But you know that when you're going to have a child, and our child was planned. So it wasn't like it just came out of the blue. But when you're in the midst of it, you really start to put things in perspective. And I started to think like, this is not something I'm going to be able to do and have the passion for while being a mum. My mum is a very hands-on mum. She works like 3 jobs, and it was very important to have my life and be Selena first. But at the same time, I wanted to be a hands-on mum, and I just realised that was not going to work. So then I took an accreditation course for mediation. At the time, I actually didn't know what it was. I was like, mediation, let's just stick it on the CV. I'm sure it would help down the line, as you do. And then after doing it, I was like, this seems like it's going to be something big. Like, I really think mediation is going to be big. Still didn't know enough about it, but it was gut, because I go a lot on my gut and how I feel. And it just kind of gave me like the little whispers, like, yeah, this is going to be it. You don't know what you're doing, but you know enough to know that you should be doing it. So once I took the course, and I was just like, I'm going to start my own business. And at the time, I only had one other family member, my older sister, who had a business. So she was just very encouraging. She's like, yeah, go and do it. Yeah, you know, it's going to be the best thing. And I was like, well, I really don't know what I'm doing. So also at that time, because it was towards my end of my maternity leave, I was on income support. So I was like, well, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm living off basically my savings at this point. I've moved into a new home. It was just like a lot's going on. And by this time I had a 2-year-old. But I was like, I don't want to give out my CV. So I purposely didn't give out my CV. I know it sounds crazy, but I didn't, because I didn't want to use that as a plan B. I was like, if I'm going to be in, I'm all in. I'm that type of person, no grey area. It's like, all right, that's it. So I went to the job centre, and then I just told them that I want to start my own business. And they were like, oh, that's great. Yeah, we've got some courses. We've got some, businesses. We've got some like workshops you can do. And I was like, because I'd never been part of the job centre. That was the only time I'd literally been on income support. But they were just very supportive. And then I went to like a business centre, and they supported me in, opening the business. And then in 2014, SMG Mediation was born. That's what happened.
I love that. And it's really interesting, isn't it? Because I do think a lot of people have the experience that something goes wrong. They get made redundant, contracts fall through, and it almost forces them into discovering perhaps what I would argue is perhaps their real purpose and what they're really passionate about. And I love the fact that you didn't have a plan B, because then I would say, don't go full force with the plan A, because, oh, well, just in case. So,
yeah.
Fantastic.
Sometimes you have to remove the safety blanket. Obviously I had certain things in place. I did have money. It wasn't like I was put out broke. Obviously I went on income support because I wanted extra money to come in, but I still had my savings. I just knew it was going to run out. So, you know, do make sure, you know, you do have other, you know, understandings and financials, and you've gone through all of that. So I did. But ultimately, yeah, I was winging it. I was like, wrist back till here we go.
Excellent. And now your business has been established for 6 years.
It has, yes. And it is just brilliant. I mean, the funny story is, it's just like my favorite number is number 4. And when I realized it in 2014, that's when I opened up the business. And then 4 years in, I became the first Black female to be award-winning Mediation Champion of the Year in my industry. So I was like, oh, there's another 4. And it just keeps happening in 4s. So I think there's something just kind of about it. But I think one of the things is that you've got to be really passionate about what you do. My whole passion was to become a lawyer, but the great thing about being a media is that I can help people make those decisions for themselves. And I still get to see the law, I still get to understand it and analyze it, but just in a different way. So I feel like I've really got the best of both worlds.
Fantastic. Well, also let me say congratulations on winning that award. That is fantastic. You know, I think it's so amazing when people get recognized in their industry, because let's face it, running a business is hard work.
Isn't it?
You know, I run a coaching business, and you've got to put in a lot of hours, but it's also a lot of you as well, isn't it? Because this is yours, it belongs to you, you're fully responsible. And so I agree, there has got to be so much passion and dedication and commitment.
Absolutely, because at first you're just not going to get paid. I mean, I say the passion has to run deep, as if you were volunteering, because that's ultimately what you're doing at the beginning. It kind of just like, is it a business? Can we call it that? Because it's not making anything. And then you go into less, oh, it's making something, but is it making a profit? But I just think, for me, if I didn't have that drive to just say, I'm going to do this, for me, extra, it was just having that dependent. I was like, I'm not going to allow that. You know, my mum, there's 5 of us, I'm a child of 5, and she never allowed anything to get in her way. So having that and watching that as I got older as well, it was like to say, well, my mum done that for me, so I'm going to be the same. I've only got 1 child, surely I can do it. So it's that drive, and you have to love what you do. I think the days are gone now where you just kind of, you know, go and study and just do it in an area where, you know, it's something that's going to earn you more money, or you're going to actually be able to sustain in that way. Money is not enough. The love for it will always like flow through more than the finance that will come. And that will just keep you driving even on the days. And there will be those days where you feel like, can I do this anymore? You know?
Absolutely. And it's great that you had a good role model, because I think we all need that in business. We need those people who, and they could be from our family, or they could even be from industry, but who have gone ahead of us in some capacity, and they're able to show us that, you know what, it's going to work out and you can absolutely do this.
Yeah.
So then tell me a little bit more about the actual process of mediation. What are some of the things that people need to be mindful of, or that can happen in that process?
Right. So the process really starts from both people being open-minded, which to me is probably the hardest part, because when you're in a dispute or a matter, you often feel like they've been an unjust, and you want to be able to have your voice and say, well, no, until that person truly understands what's actually gone on, then I'm sorry, there's no movement. So you have to want to be there. You have to be open-minded. You have to understand that even if you don't always agree with the other person, you have to at least hear them out, which sometimes can be the very difficult part, because you think, I've heard it before, and if it's come through solicitors as well, their solicitor says this and the paperwork says that. But you have to come with an open mind and say, right, we both want to sort it out. Yes, we both want to sort it out in different ways, but the key thing is that we both want to sort it out. And once you come to that understanding, that's the main thing. So normally one person would, each party would contact me and simply say there's a dispute, and, you know, we want to work it out, we want to try mediation. Both parties have to want to be there. So if one party said, yeah, there is a dispute, but I don't want mediation, then it won't work. It's voluntary. The whole point is that you're not forced. The court system already forces you to be there because you're summoned. So we want you to want to be there. And generally, if you want to be there, it's more likely that the process will go quite smoothly. Sure. So once you both ended on mediation, then you kind of sit down, you have the discussion separately, then you join together, you kind of like brainstorm all together. I facilitate it. I open the minds of, okay, what would happen if this happened? What would happen if that happened? I ask, kind of difficult questions. Some of the questions that people think, well, I haven't thought about that. Well, maybe think about that. What is the worst case scenario? What's the worst situation that can happen? And generally it is losing money or having to go to court. Most people just want their say, and majority of them just want an apology.
Really?
In hindsight, it's very little about money. Yeah. It's more about, there's a power struggle. You don't understand me. You didn't hear me, or you didn't hear me the way I felt you should have heard me. And because of that, I don't like what's going on, so let's just go to court, or, you know, let's just make sure this, you know, carries on a bit longer. So I think once that person genuinely feels heard, it's amazing how the mind just kind of just opens up. And I think the way I facilitate it is that I'm very fair. I mean, I'm a Libran, so I don't know if that helps a bit, star sign of balance. So I just kind of open up those ideas and say, look, this is your dispute, this is your argument, but this is also your resolution. You have the floor. Nobody needs to make the decision but you. And I understand that you come in here with a list of 10 things, but would it be so bad if you was to minimize it, just to, you know, kind of compromise and understand the other person? And I think the negative thing maybe that people will have with mediation is that you have to compromise. But understanding is that you're opening your mind, but it doesn't mean you have to compromise yourself, because there's a difference between compromising to understand someone and compromising yourself and your values and your integrity in order to get what you want, just so that we can all go home, you know, by lunchtime or, you know, by dinner. And I think for me, that's what makes mediation amazing, because it is led by the individuals and by the businesses, not by, you know, a judge sitting there that doesn't know who you are, you know, read pages of, you know, paper and said, well, this is the decision. So, yeah.
Amazing. It's really interesting. It's quite a new area for myself that I don't know a lot about, but I think one of the things that it's important that people are aware that sometimes in business things do go wrong, and actually you do need to bring in a mediator such as yourself to be able to support them through a process, and like you said, to resolve that dispute and hopefully get a win-win outcome for everybody.
And that's exactly what mediation is. It's win-win. There's no win-lose. There's no lose-lose. It is totally win-win. You know, most of my clients literally come out just smiling. And if the only thing is just like, you know, we've got to speak through it, and issues that we didn't speak about, you know, my clients for 2 years, entrenched issues, and then they've had a mediation with me and said, oh, do you know what? We've opened the door on that one.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It almost sounds like the business version of couples counselling.
Well, it is. It's kind of like a bit of therapy and counselling through business, through mediation. I definitely think it is. And I think the way in which I carry it, because I really care about those issues, I care about those people. You know, it comes in a lot of these processes, you become a conveyor belt. For me, I can pick. You know, they pick me, but I also pick them. So that's why it makes it a little bit more personable than just like, well, I've walked through and, you know, here's the check for it, and, you know, help me out. It's not that at all. I genuinely care and have relationships after the mediation, you know, with these clients and with these individuals and businesses.
Brilliant. That's really great. Thank you so much for sharing that, Selena. So for people who are perhaps watching this and they're not in business, and perhaps they're having some disputes personally and within their own home, have you got a couple of tips that could really perhaps help them to go through almost a bit of a process of mediation to really help them?
I would say, do you know what? Just sit down and have a moment where you're not so upset. I tend to say, my mum kind of always says to me, never write a letter where you're angry, because it just comes out wrong. So I think the best thing is just kind of like sit down and say, all right, this is happening now, but I don't want to react. You want to respond, and it's very difficult because you're upset and you're frustrated. Why don't they understand me? But you have to be in a place where you say, okay, it is an issue, but if it's, you know, something that came up on that day, maybe don't react to it, respond. Have a few days and just think about what you really want to do, because you want to do something out of the goodness of your heart, as opposed to on the, you know, on the upspring of just, well, I'm upset and I'm annoyed and I want to get you back. You have to have that understanding with yourself. For me, it's a lot about self. I work a lot on myself and having that understanding and having those conversations that people say they don't have. We all have it, but I'm happy to admit that I have that. So having that, reaching out to a service that you entrust in. I think looking at, you know, areas where you think, okay, what are their qualifications? What have they been doing? What are their courses? Sometimes that might be, you know, what do they like? Do they like the same things I like? And also the areas in which they, you know, practice in. That'll be a good start to reach out. But reaching out, and I think definitely a lot of people find it very hard to do that. Oh no, who wants to, you know, hang up their dirty laundry? But it isn't dirty laundry, because we all have issues, we all have concerns and matters. But I think the best thing is to reach out, because for me and for the clients that I have, one of the main things that they always say to me is the comfort it brings. You can feel very lonely in that. You feel like you're alone. You know, you might think, well, I know other people have done it, but when it's happening to you, it does feel like it's an isolated situation, and it really isn't. So I'll just say, take that time to just really analyze what's going on. Don't react, respond. And yeah, reach out to a professional who, you know, either is in that area, or their qualifications, or, you know, something you like about it, not just with the way they look. Anything, just to reach out. But I would definitely say their qualifications and the areas in which they practice in would be useful. Sure. And just don't do it alone. You don't have to be.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really, really helpful. I especially love the fact about responding and not reacting, because when we're reacting, we're, I think, so much in our emotions. And, you know, a lot of people say you should never make a decision when you are overly emotional, because you're not making it from a very authentic, true place. And you don't want to then regret later on, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have done this,
Yeah.
when you're in that place as well. So that's really, really helpful. And hopefully for those watching, you've taken some nuggets away there. Celine, anything you want to say finally, or you want to share with everybody?
I would just say, you know what, do what's right. And if our don't be half-hearted about it, like even in just life, and this is not just even out of business, in your life it's either all or nothing. And most of the time I get to a place and I go, should I say it, should I sang it? But I'm going to sing it. So I'm going to sing, and I'm going to say, live your dreams, it's not as hard as it may seem, gotta work to get the green, on your hopes you must lean, from your fears you have to win yourself, it's all or nothing, give your everything, all day, every day. And with that said, refresh your day and mediate your dispute away.
Thank you, Selena. I will say that you were the first person to have ever sung on Monday Moments, so congratulations.
Like to be a first, thank you.
I love your passion. I love your energy. I feel like, it's just such a sign of how much you really care and are committed to the area that you understand is the area for you. And I'm sure you make it an amazing impact. And I know you can be found on LinkedIn if people want to connect with you. Yep. So, Selena Morgan Gale, and thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you. Take care. Thanks, Fran.
Guys, have a great rest of your week. Thank you so much for listening today. As always, don't forget to encourage somebody else, and I shall see you next week. Take care.
Bye.